Were two men kidnapped and paraded around as Martians? The internet says it's true. Welcome back to The Internet Says It's True, where every week we learn something that sounds made up but is really true, part of the WCBE podcast experience. My name is Michael Kent. Welcome. This is episode 264. Like thousands and thousands of other travelers, I got stuck getting back from my most recent trip because of the shutdown in the FAA, so this is going to be a rewind episode. It's a story that we did about an early Sideshow act. I think you'll really find it fascinating. A quick reminder that if you want to be the first to listen to episodes ad-free and see extra bonuses, you can do that as a fan of the podcast on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/Michael Kent, and when you do that, not only do you get access to extras online like the video interviews with our guests, but if you join at the gold level, you get a free copy of my new book. If you haven't received your copy of The Internet Says It's True, stories that sound made up but aren't, it's the perfect time to buy, of course, because it makes a fantastic gift for, your loved ones, anyone that you want to be more smarter, and that's available wherever you buy books. Just search for The Internet Says It's True. With all of that out of the way, let's get into this episode. This was first released February of 2023. If we're going to do a podcast about exploitation in the circus, it's really too much for a single episode. We could do a story about the exploitation of animals, but that's not what this story is. We could talk about the exploitation of little people. We could talk about a whole list of things. But this episode is about one story, and even that story could be its own 10-part series. So before we get into that, I want to suggest that if you want to read the story in incredible detail, trust me, there's a lot that's fascinating about this. Read the book True Vine by Beth Macy. And Beth Macy is actually from my hometown of Urbana, Ohio, and I didn't know about this connection until I started researching this week. I tried to get in touch with her without success, but if you want to get into this in detail, that book is a great place to start, and I believe they've even optioned it for a film. My overview here is just that. It's an overview of the story. I also want to add a couple disclaimers. I have friends who have spent their lives studying and loving the circus. I don't mean for this episode to disparage the circus. This is just one ugly part of its history. And there are many parts that are beautiful and wonderful, and I acknowledge that this is an institution that provided joy and wonder to people all over the world for a very long time. I also want to talk about the word freak. It's obviously a harmful term, and I want to assure you that I'm using it in the historical context of what these people were called at the time and not meant in a disparaging way. So with that said, imagine this. It was 1914 and the circus comes to town. The Sideshow tent boasted a sign that said, "Ambassadors from Mars," and the nice people from that town were intrigued. They paid for a ticket to see the men from Mars and a group of other so-called freaks. They heard the barker outside describing the act.
"They're here, ladies and gents, the ambassadors from Mars. This is not a motion picture, they're in the flesh, here for your inspection. White of skin, long of hair, and believe me when I say, their eyes are pink. Hairy monsters from Mars. Don't crowd, please. I know you want to see them, but please keep the aisles open. 3, you say? $5. Here they are, hairy, horrible, astounding, inhuman monsters. They've been featured before all the crowned heads of Europe. Step right up."
That was the actual text of the barker's speech for Eko and Iko, the ambassadors from Mars. They'd also sometimes be billed as the sheep-headed men, cannibals from Ecuador, or the original monkey men. In one story, they were discovered in a raft drifting off the coast of Madagascar. But Eko and Iko were really George and Willie Muse, two black men born with albinism, a rare genetic expression that robbed them of the pigment in their skin and hair. Their hair was naturally blonde. Their eyes appeared pink. The story starts in 1899. George and Willie, who were just 6 and 9 years old, were working in a field in True Vine, Virginia. True Vine was a small rural community of tobacco farms southeast of Roanoke. They were free men, the grandsons of enslaved people, but were put to work sharecropping from a young age. Their job was to find and exterminate the bugs on tobacco plants. Working in the fields was difficult for these boys. Their albinism gave them an eye condition that made them sensitive to the sun, and even as children, They had permanent furrows on their foreheads from constant squinting. They lived on the farm with their mother Harriet, their father Cable, and 3 other siblings. And that year, in 1899, everything changed. The story varies, and it depends on whose account you believe. But through some means, whether Harriet agreed for them to go temporarily or they were taken without their permission, George and Willie were picked up from the field by a man in the circus business. The dominant story seems to be that Harriet went to the house to get some farming tool, and she came back, and they were gone. His name was Robert Stokes, and he was the man responsible for taking the boys from the field, allegedly using candy to lure them away. Eventually, the boys were under the control of a man named James Candy Shelton, who wanted to display them in the freak show. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, freak shows were a large part of circus sideshows. Humans have always been curious to peek in on the bizarre, the strange, and sometimes those who just look different than the rest of us. There was a time that the World's Fair and even some zoos would have human zoo exhibits in which Africans had been kidnapped and displayed, made to live outdoors as onlookers would gawk at this showing of so-called primitive life. The same was done with Native Americans. Circuses got in on this brand of exploitation. In 1880, famous circus owner P.T. Barnum displayed 2 Ohioans born with dwarfism as, quote, the wild men from Borneo. As most people had never met a little person, it was easy for them to suspend their disbelief and buy into these crazy stories about the so-called freaks on display. Siamese twins, fat ladies, dog men, all people who looked different and thus were billed as freaks to small town after small town. Most of these people were hardly paid, if at all. They were given a traveling home, meals, and a new family, that being the other so-called freaks on the sideshow. One exception was a man born with a pituitary gland condition, Charles Stratton. He grew up to be only 25 inches tall, and Barnum dressed him in a Napoleon uniform and showed him around the world as General Tom Thumb. He was seen as so valuable to Barnum that he was paid incredibly well, making Tom Thumb a millionaire before he squandered the money away. George and Willie, however, Eko and Iko as he called them, were a different story. They weren't being properly compensated for their time away from home. In fact, they were lied to and told their parents had died. They were displayed in the circus sideshow and people paid to stare. Sometimes they were simply displayed for their unusual appearance. Sometimes their handlers forced them to bite the heads off snakes or eat raw meat to complete this illusion. Other times, they sang and played music. Strangely enough, these brothers, now young men, could play any song you asked for and were often known to play the song, It's a Long Way to Tipperary. They were given elaborate matching costumes and had their bright hair matted into dreadlocks. Sometime in the mid-1920s, the brothers were sold to the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus and became incredibly popular. They literally traveled around the world performing for several heads of state, kings and queens. This was now the only life they knew, and it beat working in the field in the sun, something that was incredibly difficult for people sensitive to the sun because of their albinism. From 1914 until 1927, they had become world famous without getting paid world famous salaries. But in 1927, their lives would be changed. We'll talk about that after a quick break. There was a time that humans used 100% organic products as healing balms and moisturizers for their skin. Well, I've partnered with an awesome company that wants to get back to those times. Fatco sells organic and responsibly made tallow-based skincare products. For centuries, humans used tallow in skin moisturizers and healing balms, but unfortunately, the topical application of these fats seemed to stop around the same time that animal fats stopped being considered part of a healthy diet. A lot of modern skincare products do more harm than good by stripping your skin of its natural oils. Let's change that. You can try them out now at fatco.com and get 15% off your order by using my promo code INTERNET. Go to theinternetsaysitstrue.com/deals for the link.
I'm John DeSando, host of Back Talk. This podcast is an extension of the long-running, award-winning movie review show, It's Movie Time. Back Talk features additional content and banter with guests about new movies. If you want more insight and information about what's playing now in theaters and online, find Back Talk at the WCBE Podcast Experience on WCBE.org. You'll be happy you did.
What if your kid could open a box and step into another century? With History Unboxed, they can. Each month, a new time-traveling adventure arrives at your doorstep, packed with hands-on projects, stories, recipes, and learning has never been more fun. No screens, no boring textbooks, just immersive, age-appropriate fun that makes history stick. Whether they're mummifying an apple like an Egyptian, or crafting medieval armor, or exploring the music of the Harlem Renaissance, they're not just learning about history, they're living it. Used by families, homeschoolers, and educators across the country, History Unboxed makes the past come alive with every box. I think it's amazing that I'm personally in my 40s and I'm still learning history every week. I wasn't interested in history as a kid, and I think that's because I didn't have something that made it fun. Things have changed since then. History Unboxed makes learning history engaging, fun, and hands-on in the comfort of your own home. So if your child loves to ask why and what was it like, this is the perfect way to fuel that curiosity. Ready to time travel? Sign up today by clicking the deals link in the show notes. If you love listening to this podcast every week and you want to show your support, that would mean a great deal to me. You can do that by becoming a Patreon member. We've got members at all levels, whether you want to pledge $1 a month or $10 a month. Just think about the value that you receive from this show. And if you like the histories and the stories that you learn about or the jokes that you hear, and if you think that they're worth it, consider signing up. For that, you get every episode ad-free and a week early, access to bonuses like the unedited videos of the guest appearances, and 20% off all merchandise. You can sign up today at patreon.com/Michael Kent. That's patreon.com/Michael Kent. George and Willie Muse had been traveling around the world and displayed as circus oddities for more than a decade. They'd been told their parents were no longer living, and they'd been exploited, underpaid, and lied to while people paid money to stare and laugh at their appearance. They were bringing in as much as $32,000 a day and just being paid pennies. P.T. Barnum had been displaying them in matching fancy suits with a sash, calling them Eko and Iko, ambassadors from Mars. And one day, in 1927, the circus took them to Roanoke, near the field from which they were snatched as boys. It was their first time back in the area in 13 years. The crowd inside the tent was full, and as the boys were playing their favorite song, It's a Long Way to Tipperary, a woman pushed her way forward through the crowd, yelling out to them. George noticed her first. He stopped playing and said to his brother, "There's our dear old mother. Look, Willie, she's not dead." It turns out, while George and Willie were touring the world with the circus, Harriet had never stopped looking for them. She had an idea that they were with a circus but didn't know where or with whom. She bought tickets to this circus when it came into town on the off chance that she'd see them. The announcer of the sideshow was visibly unhappy. The brothers ran forward and embraced their mother. The illusion of the men from Mars was being shattered in front of the eyes of the onlookers. Harriet didn't care. The tent was silent as it watched her grab her boys and run them out of the tent. George and Willie went home with their mother for the first time since they were young boys. They sat in the house, shoulders slumped. They didn't know what to do with themselves. Locals started coming through the house to see the boys. They would be dropping coins into a tin cup to see them. They were living the same existence as in the sideshow, but now in a house with their mother. The city soon put a stop to it. The newspaper reported that a high-ranking official stated, quote, "Roanoke is in no need of any ambassadors from Mars," end quote. The circus sent police to the home. They claimed that the boys were their property, which is quite a disgusting claim to make about some people who were only 2 generations away from slavery. Ringling claimed that Harriet was depriving the circus of 2 valuable earners with legally binding contracts. This is where Harriet began a series of lawsuits to try to argue that her sons were being exploited. she took on the Ringlings, who were multimillionaires in an era where black people in the South who spoke up against power were still being lynched. While the legal battles dragged on, the Muse brothers returned to and continued traveling with the circus. Finally, Harriet was successful. She sued for back pay and fair wages for her sons, and she got that for them. It could be argued that perhaps the circus may have been a better place for them. This was all they knew, and in the circus, they were safe from working fields in the Virginia sun, safe from lynchings, and because of those efforts, George and Willie were able to get Harriet a new house. They were able to pay for her health care, and when she died of a heart attack in 1942, they paid for a funeral and paid off her debts. George and Willie retired from the circus in the mid-1950s and loved telling locals the amazing stories of their travels around the world. George died of heart failure in 1972, but Willie lived until 2001. When he died, he was 108 years old. We'll leave you with a recording of Willie as an old man, singing that song that made Eko and Iko famous in a bygone time.
It's a long way to Tipperary, it's a long way to go. It's a long ways to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know. Goodbye, my piccalilli, farewell, Ulster Square. It's a long, long ways to Tipperary, but my heart's right there.
It's time for the part of the podcast where I call a friend, and today I'm calling comedian Lisa Berry. Lisa is a comedian, performer, and sketch writer whose sketches have appeared on BuzzFeed, Hoo Ha Ha, and Funny or Die. She's also one of the founding producers of C-Bus Comedy. I had a blast doing a show with C-Bus Comedy. It wasn't that long ago. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. The year's off to a great start. I'm excited. Things are happening. And you've been producing.
Wild weather, but
the weather sucks. I mean,
yeah.
It's been gloomy every day for like 3 months here in Ohio.
Yeah. I have a coworker who is originally from India, and then she moved to Arizona, and she was really excited when they moved to Ohio because she had never seen snow before, and she was so excited. She thought it was going to be a Hallmark movie every day, and then she moved here and she's like, "Oh no, it's actually just gray and gross."
Yeah,
yes, that's Ohio winter.
There are a couple days every once in a while where you get that beautiful blue sky and then the snow on the ground, and I feel like Christmas was that way this year, but
I agree.
But oh my gosh, whatever we've got going on now is awful. It's horrible. I use a mood light on my desk, I have one of those mood lights, and I feel like it really, I don't know if it helps.
But it's even if it's a placebo, it helps. Even if it's like a... Yeah.
The problem is my skepticism overrides the placebo effect. So it's like if I turn it on, I'm like, this doesn't work. As I'm turning it on, it doesn't do anything. So
I know. I'm the same way. I feel like I just get so skeptical that I'm like, this doesn't. So then I feel like I get so skeptical that I have like a reverse placebo effect. I feel like things that actually should work, I convince myself they don't, and then they don't work.
I'm going to stop taking my heart medicine because I feel horrible. This cheeseburger will work.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So what's the latest with C-Bus Comedy? I know you're doing the shows in Hilliard at the station. And what is that, the first Thursday? Or no, when are those shows?
Yes. So those are always the last Thursday of every month at the station. The February show, let me check actually my calendar. So the last Thursday in February is going to be the 23rd. We actually have Eric Tate headlining. So I think that'll be a fun show.
Eric Tate, world champion, third place world champion, magician and comedian. That's exciting. I wonder if I'll be around to be able to watch that. What's the date on that?
It's February 23rd.
23rd. No, I have a show. Never mind.
Oh, no. Okay.
I have a corporate event that night.
Since the people watching this can't be at the corporate event, they can all come and watch Eric Tate.
Go to Hilliard, Ohio, if you're in, the Midwest, and it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's a good time. It's a great bar, and downtown Hilliard is kind of a cool spot too. Before and
It
after
is.
the
It's
show,
sort of
just go across the street over to what we call the Dora. A lot of places have Doras, but we have Crooked Can, which is like a brewery with an outdoor seating area and a little market. It's a great little area.
cool. It is. It's fun.
So for our first question today, like usual, we're going to play for a joke, just a street joke or whatever. So if you get it wrong, you have to tell me a joke. And if you get it right, I'll tell you one. Here is your question. Eko and Iko, the ambassadors from Mars, were real men displayed in the freak show in the circus in the early 20th century. Which one of these describes who these men really were? A, they were albino black men who were stolen from their home. B, they were Siamese twins from China. Or C, they were little people.
I feel like
This is
I
hard. These are all
understood all of the
equally
words
plausible.
in the question, but I don't feel like I even understood all of those words together. Like I don't
Yeah.
quite understand the question.
So so basically these two people were displayed as ambassadors from Mars and called Eko and Iko. But the
Got it.
truth is that they were either albino black men stolen from home, Siamese twins brought from China, or little people.
I am going to guess A. I'm gonna go with A.
A, the albino black men that were stolen from home?
Yes.
The answer is A. They were albino black men. They were stolen from their home. You got that one right. This entire episode was about that. And I found that there was this book, True Vine, written by Beth Macy, who is from Urbana, Ohio, where I grew up.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
and I
how
found that out
cool.
like in the research of this. I didn't know this, and I tried to contact her, didn't get in touch, but it's a crazy story. It's a crazy story.
Yeah, it sounds like a crazy story.
And it really, I think they've optioned True Vine for a movie. True Vine, that it was the name of the community where they were stolen from. But I think they've optioned it for a movie. The craziest part of it, in my opinion, is that the mother, now we're talking, this was 1927. There were still
Right.
lynchings happening. Their mother, a black woman, rescued them from the circus. Like she showed up.
Really?
Yeah, she showed up and said, F you guys, I'm taking my sons back. And then there were years of legal battles in order to get these guys paid. And she won, and she got them paid. And they
Wow,
ended
she's
up-
a badass.
Yeah,
Is the movie
absolutely.
going to be about her?
I bet it. Well, it would be. Yeah. I mean, it has
Yeah.
to be, right? That has to be because
Yeah.
she never stopped
it-
looking for them.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like an amazing story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance. I stumbled on this story last week, and I didn't get a chance to read this book yet. But I'm really excited because I've read excerpts and I've read a ton on the story in the last week, and it's an amazing, amazing story of exploitation and perseverance, and there's some sadness to it. Home life was not good for them, right? These guys have no pigment in their skin, and they're out working in tobacco fields. And then even when the mother rescued them, she was charging neighbors to come and see them. So there's some of it that's kind of gross. And if I'm writing that movie, I'm skipping that part.
Right. Yeah. Because I
That-
feel like,
That fights against
probably the reality of the time. Maybe that was the best option for them. But in 2022, we can probably skip that part of the story, right?
Yeah. And their father drove vehicles somehow. I don't know if he drove a wagon or whatever he drove, but he stayed home from work because these kids were getting paid now. And they ended up going back to the circus, but they got paid, and so they were able to buy their mother a home. And
Wow.
it ends less sad than the actual story.
Right.
I owe you a joke. So here's a joke about the circus. Did you hear about the guy who circumcised elephants for the circus?
No.
The pay is lousy, but the tips are enormous.
But I'm bummed.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to have something about peanuts in it, but it didn't.
Here. This is speaking of peanuts. For this next question, if you get it wrong, by the way, you've got to tell me some sort of embarrassing story. Doesn't have to be a stage story. It can be a story with kids. It could be anything.
Oh,
So-
okay. Yep. I got one.
Circus people are notoriously superstitious. You mentioned peanuts. Apparently, eating peanuts backstage at the circus is a big no-no. Whistling is bad luck. wearing a green costume is bad luck in the circus world. Which one of these three is thought to bring circus people good luck? A, keeping the hair from an elephant's tail in your pocket. B, rubbing the lion's mane before the show starts. Or C, drinking gin.
Ooh, okay. Let's see. These are all good. Keeping the elephant's hair in the pocket. I mean, that feels like it's likely because it's, it's like a rabbit's foot, right? So
Sure.
that seems likely.
Sure.
Rubbing a lion's mane. I mean, it wasn't good luck for Siegfried and Roy, so I don't know about that one.
Too soon.
Is it? What's the
No, it's been at least 10 years on that one. They're both no longer living, so.
No, I know. And then the drinking gin, I mean, that just seems like something they were
doing anyway.
They were doing anyway, yeah. I mean, although maybe they were like, no, this is for good luck, trust me. This is
rationalizing drinking. Sure.
It's just to make the show run well. I'm gonna go with the elephant's tail.
Okay, the answer is A. Keeping the hair from an elephant's tail in your pocket is good luck in the circus world. Wonderful job. You're 2 for 2. Killing it, Lisa Barry.
I can tell an embarrassing story still if you want me to, because I had one in mind.
I will. Let me tell you mine real quick. This is something I told on Facebook yesterday or the other day that I've not told on the podcast. My wife loves swans.
Okay.
And she asked me, she said, you read this? Did you see this? It was
I
insanely embarrassing. Yeah. She goes, I want to know, like, where are there swans around here? Are there swans in Ohio? I was like, yeah, they're everywhere. You just have to know, like, kind of where to look. I was like, I feel like I've been seeing one. Like, I've been driving by a pond with one. And then a couple days later, I drive down this road and there's like an apartment building. And then their little holding pond behind the apartment building had a swan and a fountain. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. So next time we're in the car, I'm like, I got to show you something. I kept it a secret. I was like, so excited. I was like, I got to show you something. And then I drove to it and I was like, let's get out of the car. And we drove, we like parked in the parking lot of the apartment buildings and walked like behind the apartment buildings, like, between two buildings. And I was like, there it is. And I looked at it and it was a plastic decoy swan. I was so proud of myself.
I know, you were like, I
did this. I am husband of the year. Ridiculous. But there are real swans in Columbus, I swear, because I have taken photos of them.
You just have to be able to tell the real from the fake ones.
Yeah. And for people if you're in Columbus, Ohio, and you're looking for swans, I frequently find real swans at what we call Broadcast Lake, which is off of 670 near Grandview, off of Dublin Road. Yeah. So when I say we, I mean the birding community. I'm incredibly nerdy. The birding community calls it Broadcast Lake. Probably no one else.
Oh, so wait, it's not actually called Broadcast Lake?
I don't think so. It's just where ABC 6 Fox 28 is, and I think there's a radio station on that same strip of land there, and the Watermark building's back there. It's a whole
yes. I used to work in that area, so I know what you're talking about. Because I was gonna say I don't know where Broadcast Lake is, but that is not what it's actually called.
I don't know if people outside of it was the first time I heard it was birders. So anyway, enough about birds. I want to hear your embarrassing story.
Okay, so I mean, I don't know if you would call it an embarrassing story, but so my son is 4, and this was a little bit ago, so I think he was still 3 when this happened. But he, so one of the things that we're doing, so it's not really embarrassing, so don't get too excited by the start of this, but we're teaching him. It's a really big thing now for parents. You teach them the correct names of like genitalia. You teach them to say penis. You teach them the word vagina, so that you're supposed to teach them the correct names.
And then they go to their friends and they use the not correct names.
Exactly.
Right.
And that alone creates some funny moments because like you have not lived until you've been at a restaurant and your 3-year-old son yells, "Hey mom, my testicles are sticking." So there's that. I've learned a lot about how frequently testicles stick. I did not know that until I had my son.
Yeah.
But he's in a why phase right now where he asks a lot of questions, and he asks questions sometimes when I'm I'm driving him to or from daycare, and especially when I'm on the way from daycare driving home, like I've worked all day, I'm exhausted, I'm mentally exhausted, I don't have the mental ability to answer all of his questions as thoroughly as I would like. So sometimes I sometimes I'll say something like, that sounds like a dad question. Let's wait until we get home and you can ask dad. I don't have the ability to answer it right now. So Lincoln was asking, or my son was asking me how he said, what makes a car run as we were driving home. And I said, oh, the engine. And he said, well, how does the engine work? And I realized I don't know. And I was like, I don't have time to really think about this. I was like, that sounds like a dad question. And he said, do you not know because you have a vagina? I was like, no, that is not why.
Wow.
I do not know.
You're raising an incel.
I know. I was like, we got to talk about this.
Unbelievable. Have you been listening to Ben Shapiro podcasts, Lincoln?
What are they teaching you in that daycare I'm sending you?
By the way, if you want him to use a slang jargon for the sticking testicles, I've heard that called a batwing, which I really enjoy.
Maybe I'll talk to my husband. We'll see if we want to introduce that one.
Yeah, that's a choice. That's a choice that only the parents can make.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the Hilliard school district calls that parents' choice. The people that are suing the Hilliard school district, I should say. All right, so let's move on. For question 3, we're going to play for a sticker. This is an Internet Says It's True sticker. These are sticky and they're square.
And I think this is my 3rd time and I've never won one.
Oh no, well you're 2 for 2, so things are going well so far.
This is the best I've ever done.
this one's another. These are all hard. There's no way. These are all fun little things I discovered while I was researching. And this one, well, okay, we'll talk about it after. Grady Stiles Jr. was better known for his name in the circus freak show, Lobster Boy. He had ectrodactyly, a genetic condition that forced his hands into the shape of claws. He was born without legs. Which one of these is a true story about Grady Stiles Jr.? A, he was hired as the lion tamer for the circus, but he was fired because it was unsafe for his wheelchair to be in the ring with the lion. B, he claimed he could communicate with the elephants. Or C, he shot and killed his daughter's fiance for calling him a freak.
Oh my goodness. I mean, oh boy, this sounds like also a sad story.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, just because the last one just sounds so sad. I think it's the real one.
You've got a sticker after 3 times on the show. Yes.
I feel bad celebrating after what sounds like a really sad
Seriously.
story, but I am excited about the sticker.
As soon as I read this, I have decided this is going to be an episode because it's not just his whole life. So this guy was an abusive alcoholic. He beat his wife, and it was not a happy family. And his oldest daughter, who was only 15 at the time, was dating an 18-year-old kid. This was 1978, so this wasn't like, this isn't like the 20s where things were so he shot and killed her husband-to-be on the eve of the wedding. And the guy had called him a freak. So what's really interesting, and when I do this episode, you'll hear all about this. His wife, Grady's wife, hired someone to kill him, and to kill Grady, and Grady was killed by a hitman.
So she successfully hired someone to kill him.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Basically a life of just being abused, and Grady's son and daughter are still alive, I believe. Donna was
I mean, I guess if 78, they would be.
Yeah,
probably.
and the son. So Grady was like a 3rd or 4th generation person with ectrodactyly, this condition. So his dad and grandfather, and I believe great grandfather, had this. He was the 4th one, and his son has it and is still alive. And his son still has this, thing. And I don't know if his son does any circus performing or anything, but there is a Grady Stiles the 3rd. So
I've never even heard of that. And
it's interesting. I first heard about this guy because he was on the cover of the of one of my favorite albums when I was in high school, Freak Show by Silverchair. Grunge band of a bunch of teenagers. You're 3 for 3. You're killing it. Question 4. For this question, we're playing for doing the dishes. So if you get it wrong, you've immediately got to go do the dishes when we're done. If you get it right, I'll go do mine. But I don't have any because I did them after the other day. So I think maybe I'll do dishes. I'll make some dishes and then I'll do them.
Right.
So
yeah. Because you still have to, the spirit of the consequence.
Yeah. And if I was a really good husband, I would be like, oh, I'll go clean something else instead. But that's where this is limited to dishes and dishes only. So, okay, here you go. Question 4. Which one of these was an actual sideshow act? I made the other 2 up. Okay. One of these is real. A, the ham sandwich fiend. B, the dope fiend. Or C, the cigarette fiend.
Okay. I can't even think of what a ham sandwich fiend would be. I mean, I guess.
What are any of these? We know what a dope fiend is, but one of these is a sideshow act.
Is a sideshow act. Okay. So, I mean, okay. So like the dope fiend, I know what a dope fiend would be. I'm trying to think of like in a side.
If it helps, this was in the 1930s.
30s. Okay. So I don't even, when did people start using the word dope? Were they using the word dope in the 1930s? I don't know. The cigarette fiend. I mean, I feel like maybe there could be like a sideshow act where they were like, look at this. Although I think they thought cigarettes in the 1930s, didn't they think cigarettes were like healthy? Okay. I think I'm going to say dope fiend. And I think it was like, just like they just put somebody out there and they were like, I'm going to say dope fiend. I'm going to say B, dope fiend.
The answer, cigarette fiend. So Peter Robinson was the most famous cigarette fiend act. And oftentimes the cigarette fiend was also the skinny man or the skeleton man, which was the case with Peter Robinson. He had like atrophied legs and stuff. His exhibit usually consisted of him just lounging on a sofa, inhaling cigarettes. And here's why it was a freak show thing. Apparently for the late 1800s and early 1900s, this just sitting and smoking one cigarette after another was bizarre and obscene because cigarettes were an item of luxury. They were only smoked during leisure time, not all the time, and not chain smoking. No one chain smoked. It was just kind of like you'd smoke one, which is really strange, which I guess maybe it's before they started putting like, this addictive nicotine type stuff into the tobacco or whatever. So in the 1930s, it was reported that the cigarette fiend earned $25 a week for his work in the freak shows. And that was, I think it was like 35 grand a year or something. Whatever it was, that's 25 a week isn't 35 grand a year. I don't know where.
I thought you were saying it was like the equivalent of
maybe it is.
Grand a year.
Whatever it is, they said it was the same as like what most people made in the country at that time. So this guy just sat and chain smoked in front of a crowd. Yeah. Who knew? So
okay.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. I guess if it was seen as an object of luxury, but you're right, they must have been before they started. Not like that there was ever a time cigarettes were good, but it must have been before they started putting.
Sure.
All that, yeah.
There was a very famous magician who is no longer with us, but his name this is worth Googling, Tom Mullica, Mullica, who made his name in magic for his cigarette act. He was a great magician. He also impersonated Red Skelton, he was really good at that because he had the same face, basically. But this guy could contort his face while he did this act where it appeared as if he was just lighting cigarettes and eating them. And he's just tossing them in his mouth throughout. So like 10, 20 cigarettes. He's got a whole pack of cigarettes in his mouth. And then out of nowhere, he would just smile and all these cigarettes would come out and his smile lit. It's an incredible act. It's worth Googling. Ask Eric Tate about Tom Mullica. Yeah. So you're 3 for 4, doing very well. This next one, Lisa, is for all the marbles. And if you get this wrong, I'm going to ban you from the podcast. You won't be asked on for a 4th time. What is something that we do now that people will look at in 400 years and say, what the hell were they thinking? So
say that one more time.
Sure. I'm looking at this idea of sideshows and freak shows in general. And and we can even look at last week's episode, which was about the fact that we thought vampires were real. And so we stuck a brick the Venetians stuck a brick in someone's skull so that they couldn't bite their shroud and become a vampire. We do stupid stuff, and then we don't know about it for hundreds of years. So this is an open-ended question to you. What is something that we do now that people in 400 years are going to look back and say, what were they thinking?
Oh, gosh. Okay, that's a good one. Sometimes I feel, I don't know. sometimes I do feel like people are gonna, in like 400 years, are gonna look back and be like, why were you guys all holding like devices that, like, I feel like we all have cell phones on us all the time. And in 400 years, they're gonna be like, well, no wonder you all like had all of these issues because you were just holding this electronic device to your face constantly all of the time.
Interesting.
Sometimes I think.
So you think there will be sort of a awakening, like a great awakening of away from technology? Or do you think it'll be because it'll be implanted? Yeah. Do you think it'll be implanted in our heads?
Yeah, by that time we'll be like telecommunicating with everybody all of the time.
Yeah, well,
look back on us.
That's a good answer. That's a right answer. We'll call it a right answer, which means you're welcome back. I think that I was asking my friend this earlier, and what I said was it'll have something to do with cancer. Like, it'll be painfully obvious that we are all doing something that is very clearly giving us cancer. And it could be the same. Yeah. It could be a cell phone. It could be the cell phones.
I know, that's kind of what I think is I feel like I don't know, they're gonna be like, why were you just like walking around with these all the time? Or even like, I mean, I do think not in 400 years. I think in even just like 20 years, honestly, I think people are going to look back at people like tanning.
Oh, yeah.
And be like,
absolutely.
Why did anybody ever do that? Like, that is just so clearly bad for you.
Yeah, I think it's probably most likely to be the stuff we're eating, right? Like, there's got to be something very common, like fried foods or processed foods that we're eating that's giving us cancer. And a lot of people already think this. But it'll be like, where all the evidence points to that. And there will be another 20 years of like right-wing Republicans saying, you can't tell me what to eat. This is, a myth. It's fine. And just kind of like what we're looking at with climate change. And, it'll be a thing where like, it'll be don't look up where everyone just denies
and then I
it.
feel like we'll go through that. And then, I don't know, did you see this about the sodas, right? Like Democrats tried to ban like super large size sodas in New York City and it didn't pass. And then like 10 years later, Republicans got upset because they were like, why didn't you warn us how bad big sodas were?
That was an episode of Parks and Rec, too, where
that's right.
They tried
like
to get rid of the Sweetums 64 ounce soda or the Super Punch Burger
that was,
or whatever.
Based on something that I think then like, I don't know, I think it was real in New York City.
They do a lot of stuff that is based on real stuff because Sweetums talks about in that episode, they talk about, this is our worst PR since or something like there was a giant vat of molasses that exploded and caused a very slow moving wave. And that's a real thing that happened. One of my first episodes was about the Boston molasses flood. Yeah, it was a real thing. And I think they do a lot of inside jokes like that. But in any case, thank you so much for coming back on the show, Lisa. Where can people learn about your comedy? And where can people learn about the shows that you produce?
Yes, so people can follow me at Barry227 on Instagram, or all of the shows that I produce with C-Bus Comedy. So that will be anything that's C-Bus Comedy, but also any shows I do, outside of C-Bus Comedy or anything I'm plugging. But C-Bus Comedy, where I'm one of the producers, they can follow C-Bus Comedy on Instagram or Facebook and find out about all of our shows. Like you said, we have a show at the station in Hilliard the last Thursday of every month, but we also produce shows at other places, Natalie's, Cafe Kerouac, different places around the city. And we bring in a lot of really cool people. We've had you, Michael, on the show, but we bring in people not just from Columbus, but from all over the country, and they're great shows.
Very good. Go check those out. Thank you once again, Lisa. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's all for this week. Thank you so much to my friend Lisa Berry for being my guest. Once again, if you want to learn more about this, look up the book True Vine by Beth Macy. Here's some audio from an actual kid from Mars.
Thank you for listening to The Internet Says It's True. To listen to episodes ad-free and a week early, support us on Patreon. You can do that at patreon.com/Michael Kent. If you learned something just now that you didn't already know, go to the Apple Podcast app and leave us a review with 5 stars and a few words. That helps us a ton, because that's how the algorithm works. I don't know what an algorithm is, but just do it. See you next week for a brand new episode of The Internet Says It's True!
The Internet Says It's True would like to thank the Patreon subscribers whose monthly contributions help to make the show possible. Dallas Ray, Sean Brown, Bryce Swanson, Eugene Anderson, Matt McVeigh, Jim Martin, Joanne Martin, the show's official Emperor Kick Track. The show is written and produced by me, Michael Kent. The theme song is by Finite Music Forge. All audio clips in this episode are used for education and commentary and used under Fair Use Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107. You can listen to past episodes by searching for The Internet Says It's True wherever you get your podcasts, and you can see bonus content at patreon.com/Michael Kent.